Imagine this. You're sitting at a dimly lit, upscale restaurant, the kind where the silverware sparkles like diamonds under the soft glow of chandeliers. The air is thick with the scent of truffles and expensive perfume. Across from you sits a man mysterious, charming, and undeniably wealthy. He's not just any man. He's a millionaire who's chosen you out of countless others for this one-of-a-kind date. But here's the catch. You don't know his name, his story, or why he's so interested in you. All you know is that he promised this night would change your life forever. Sounds like something out of a movie, right? Well, for one woman, this wasn't fiction. It was her reality. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why this single meal didn't just change her life. It shattered everything she thought she knew about love, destiny, and the power of a single decision. Now, before we dive into this jaw-dropping tale, let me ask you something. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to have your life transformed in just one night? To go from ordinary to extraordinary in the blink of an eye? If you're nodding your head or even just a little curious, then you're in the right place. Because today, I'm going to take you on a journey that's equal parts thrilling, emotional, and utterly unpredictable. This isn't just a story about a date. It's a story about fate, secrets, and the kind of twists that will leave you questioning everything. So, grab a snack, get comfortable, and whatever you do, don't click away because trust me, you're going to want to hear how this ends. Let's start with our main character, a woman we'll call Emily. Emily was your average 28-year-old living in the heart of New York City. She had a decent job, a small but cozy apartment, and a group of friends who loved her dearly. But like so many of us, Emily felt like something was missing. She wasn't unhappy, but she wasn't exactly living her dream life either. She spent her days scrolling through social media, envying the seemingly perfect lives of influencers and celebrities, and her nights wondering if she'd ever find the kind of love that made all the struggles worth it. Little did she know, her life was about to take a turn so dramatic, it would make even the most outrageous rom-coms look tame. It all started on a rainy Tuesday evening. Emily was sitting on her couch, wrapped in a blanket and binge-watching her favorite reality TV show when her phone buzzed. It was a notification from a dating app she'd almost forgotten she had. She opened it, expecting the usual, "Hey, how's it going?" from some guy who clearly hadn't read her profile. But what she saw instead made her heart skip a beat. The message was simple, yet intriguing. "I've been watching your profile for a while, and I think you're exactly the kind of woman I've been searching for. Let me take you out to dinner any restaurant, anytime. My treat." Attached to the message was a photo of a man who looked like he'd stepped straight out of a GQ magazine. Handsome, confident, and with an air of mystery that was impossible to ignore. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds too good to be true. And you're right, it does. But here's the thing, Emily wasn't the kind of person to take risks. She was cautious, practical, and always played it safe. But something about this message felt different. Maybe it was the way he phrased it, or the fact that he didn't seem like the typical guy on a dating app. Whatever it was, Emily found herself typing out a response before she could second-guess herself. "Okay," she wrote. "But I get to pick the restaurant." And just like that, she was in. Fast forward to the night of the date. Emily arrived at the restaurant, a place so exclusive, she'd only ever seen it in magazines. She was nervous, of course, but also excited. This was the kind of night she'd always dreamed of, and she wasn't about to let her nerves ruin it. She walked in, and there he was, the man from the photo, even more handsome in person. He introduced himself as Daniel, and from the moment they sat down, the conversation flowed effortlessly. He was charming, witty, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her. But there was something else, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. It was almost as if he was holding something back, like there was a part of him he wasn't ready to reveal. As the night went on, Emily found herself opening up in ways she never had before. She told him about her dreams, her fears, and the things she'd always been too afraid to share with anyone else. And Daniel? He listened. Really listened. It was as if he could see straight through her, straight to the parts of herself she'd been hiding for so long. But just when she thought she was starting to figure him out, he dropped a bombshell that would change everything. "Emily," he said, his voice low and serious. "There's something you need to know about me. Something I haven't told you yet, and that, my friends, is where we're going to pause for now. Because what Daniel revealed next is something you're going to have to hear for yourself. Was he who he said he was? Or was there something darker, more dangerous lurking beneath the surface? The answers to these questions and the shocking twists that followed are coming up next. But before we get there, I want to hear from you. What do you think Daniel's secret is? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this incredible story. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss what happens next. This introduction is designed to hook viewers immediately, build a psychological connection, and keep them engaged through curiosity and emotional investment. It introduces key characters and themes while maintaining enough mystery to compel viewers to keep watching. The tone is conversational and relatable, targeting a US audience with trending keywords like mystery, millionaire, and life transformed. The cliffhanger at the end ensures viewers are eager for the next part of the story. As Emily sat across from Daniel, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't help but feel like the entire restaurant had gone silent. The clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversations, the soft hum of the piano in the background, it all faded into a distant blur. All she could focus on was the intensity in Daniel's eyes as he leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something you need to know about me," he repeated, his tone heavy with unspoken weight. Emily's mind raced. Was he married? Was he some kind of criminal? Or worse, was this all some elaborate prank? She braced herself, her fingers tightening around the stem of her wine glass, as Daniel took a deep breath and began to unravel the first thread of his secret. "I'm not just a businessman," he said slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. "I'm part of something bigger. Something that most people wouldn't understand." Emily's brows furrowed as she tried to process his words. What did he mean by something bigger? Was he involved in some kind of underground organization? A secret society? Her imagination ran wild, but before she could ask, Daniel continued. "I've been watching you for a while, Emily." "Not in a creepy way," he added quickly, noticing the alarm flicker across her face. "But because I believe you have a gift. A gift that could change everything." Now Emily was completely lost. A gift? What was he talking about? She was just an ordinary woman with an ordinary life. She wasn't special. She wasn't extraordinary. And yet, the way Daniel spoke with such conviction, such certainty made her wonder if, maybe, just maybe, there was something about her she hadn't yet discovered. Before Emily could press him for more details, Daniel glanced at his watch and sighed. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice tinged with regret. "I've already said too much. But I promise you, Emily, this is just the beginning. If you're willing to take a chance on me, on this, I'll show you a world you never knew existed." And with that, he stood up, leaving a generous stack of bills on the table to cover the bill. "Think about it," he said, his eyes locking onto hers one last time. "I'll be in touch." And just like that, he was gone, leaving Emily sitting there, her mind spinning with questions and her heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Emily couldn't stop thinking about Daniel, about his cryptic words, his mysterious demeanor, and the way he had looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. She tried to go about her normal routine, but everything felt different now. Her job, her friends, even her favorite coffee shop, it all seemed so mundane compared to the enigma that was Daniel. She found herself scrolling through his social media profiles, searching for clues, but there was nothing. No photos, no posts, no trace of him anywhere. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. And yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that he was still out there, watching, waiting. Then one evening, as Emily was walking home from work, her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at the address below. Tonight. 8 p.m. Come alone." Her heart leapt into her throat as she read the message. It had to be Daniel. Who else could it be? She hesitated for a moment, her rational mind screaming at her to ignore it, to block the number and forget about him. But her curiosity and something deeper, something she couldn't quite name, won out. Before she could second-guess herself, she hailed a cab and gave the driver the address. The location turned out to be an old, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. As Emily stepped out of the cab, she felt a chill run down her spine. The place looked like something out of a horror movie, with its broken windows, rusted metal doors, and eerie silence. But before she could turn back, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was Daniel. He looked different somehow, more serious, more intense. "I'm glad you came," he said, his voice low and steady. "What I'm about to show you will change everything. But once you see it, there's no going back. Are you ready?" Emily's heart was pounding so loudly she was sure Daniel could hear it. She wanted to say no, to run back to the safety of her ordinary life. But something inside her, a spark of curiosity, a hunger for something more, pushed her to nod. "I'm ready," she whispered. Daniel smiled, a small, almost imperceptible smile, and gestured for her to follow him inside. As they stepped into the warehouse, Emily's eyes widened in shock. The interior was nothing like she had expected. Instead of decay and darkness, the space was filled with state-of-the-art technology screens displaying streams of data, machines humming with energy, and a team of people working intently at their stations. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. "Welcome to the real world, Emily," Daniel said, his voice echoing in the vast space. "This is where the future is being built. And you, whether you realize it or not, are a key part of it." Emily's mind was reeling. What was this place? Who were these people? And what did any of it have to do with her? Before she could ask, Daniel led her to a large screen displaying a map of the world, dotted with glowing points of light. "These are the people like you," he explained. "People with unique abilities, hidden potential. People who can change the course of history if given the chance. And you, Emily, are one of them." As Emily stared at the screen, a flood of emotions washed over her: confusion, disbelief, but also a strange sense of belonging. For the first time in her life, she felt like she was part of something bigger than herself. But with that feeling came a wave of questions. What was her gift? Why had Daniel chosen her? And what would happen if she said yes to whatever he was offering? The answers to those questions and the dangers that came with them were still hidden, waiting to be uncovered. But one thing was certain: Emily's life would never be the same again. And so, as the screen flickered with data and the hum of machines filled the air, Emily stood at the edge of a new reality, her heart racing and her mind spinning with possibilities. The mystery of Daniel, the secrets of this hidden world, and the truth about her own potential were all pieces of a puzzle she was only beginning to understand. But one thing was clear: the journey ahead would be anything but ordinary. And as the screen zoomed in on a single glowing point, a point that represented her, Emily knew that the next chapter of her life was about to begin. But what that chapter would hold, and whether she was truly ready for it, remained to be seen. As Emily stood in the middle of the high-tech warehouse, her mind was a whirlwind of emotions and questions. The glowing map on the screen, the cryptic words from Daniel, and the sheer magnitude of what she was witnessing all collided in her thoughts, leaving her both exhilarated and terrified. Daniel stepped closer, his presence calm yet commanding, as if he could sense the storm raging inside her. "I know this is a lot to take in," he said, his voice steady but laced with an urgency that sent a shiver down her spine. "But there's no time to explain everything right now. What I need to know is this: are you willing to trust me? To trust this?" He gestured to the room around them, to the people working diligently at their stations, to the future he claimed she was a part of. Emily opened her mouth to respond, but before she could utter a word, the sound of a loud alarm blared through the warehouse, shattering the tense silence. The room erupted into chaos. The once focused team scrambled to their feet, their faces etched with panic. Red lights flashed, casting an eerie glow over the space, and the hum of machines was drowned out by the piercing wail of the alarm. Daniel's expression darkened as he grabbed Emily's arm, his grip firm but not painful. "We need to move. Now," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. Emily didn't argue. She could feel the urgency in his touch, the gravity of the situation pressing down on her like a weight. They hurried through a maze of corridors, the sound of hurried footsteps and shouted orders echoing around them. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, her mind racing to keep up with the rapid turn of events. What was happening? Who were they running from? And why did it feel like her life depended on every step she took? As they reached a secure-looking door at the end of a hallway, Daniel quickly entered a code on the keypad, his fingers moving with practiced precision. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a small, dimly lit room filled with monitors and equipment. Daniel ushered Emily inside and closed them. Door behind them, the noise of the alarm muffled but still audible. "Stay here," he instructed, his tone leaving no room for argument. "No matter what you hear, don't open this door. Do you understand?" Emily nodded, her throat too dry to speak. Daniel gave her one last lingering look, his eyes filled with something she couldn't quite decipher: fear, determination, or maybe both, before he turned and disappeared back into the chaos. Alone in the room, Emily's thoughts spiraled. She glanced at the monitors, which displayed live feeds from various parts of the warehouse. Her breath caught as she saw figures in black tactical gear moving through the halls, their faces obscured by masks. They moved with purpose, their weapons drawn, and it was clear they weren't there to negotiate. Emily's stomach churned as the reality of the situation sank in. This wasn't just some high-stakes game or secret society, this was life and death. And somehow, she was right in the middle of it. The sound of gunfire echoed through the monitors, and Emily flinched, her hands flying to her mouth to stifle a gasp. She watched in horror as the team she had seen working so diligently just moments ago now fought to defend themselves, their faces etched with fear and determination. Her eyes darted from screen to screen, searching for Daniel, but he was nowhere to be seen. Where was he? Was he safe? And what did these intruders want? The questions swirled in her mind, each one more terrifying than the last. But amidst the fear, a new emotion began to take root: anger. Anger at being thrust into this situation without warning. Anger at the danger these people were facing, and anger at herself for not knowing what to do. Just as Emily was about to give in to the panic threatening to overwhelm her, one of the monitors caught her eye. It showed a feed from a hallway she hadn't seen before, and there, standing in the shadows, was a figure she recognized instantly. It was Daniel, but something was different. His posture, his expression, it was as if he had transformed into someone else entirely. He was speaking to one of the masked intruders, his gestures calm and deliberate, almost as if they were negotiating. Emily's breath hitched as she leaned closer to the screen, her eyes narrowing in confusion. What was he doing? Who was he talking to? And why did it look like he was on their side? Before she could process what she was seeing, the door to the room slid open, and Emily spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. But it wasn't Daniel who stood there. It was a woman, tall and imposing, with piercing green eyes and a demeanor that radiated authority. "Emily," the woman said, her voice calm but firm. "My name is Dr. Evelyn Carter. I don't have time to explain everything, but you need to come with me." Now, Emily hesitated, her mind racing. Who was this woman? Could she trust her? And where was Daniel? Dr. Carter seemed to sense her hesitation and stepped closer, her expression softening just enough to be reassuring. "I know you have questions, and I promise you'll get answers. But right now, your life is in danger. Please, trust me." Emily glanced back at the monitors, her eyes lingering on the feed showing Daniel. He was still talking to the intruder, his face unreadable. Something about the scene made her stomach twist, but she didn't have time to dwell on it. With a deep breath, she turned back to Dr. Carter and nodded. "Okay," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I'll go with you." Dr. Carter gave her a small, approving smile and gestured for her to follow. As they stepped out of the room and into the chaos of the warehouse, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into a world far more dangerous and far more complicated than she had ever imagined. And as the sound of gunfire and shouting echoed around her, one thought burned brighter than all the others. This was only the beginning. The mystery of Daniel, the secrets of this hidden world, and the truth about her own role in it were all pieces of a puzzle that was growing more complex by the second. But one thing was certain: Emily was no longer just an ordinary woman living an ordinary life. She was at the center of something much bigger, something that would test her in ways she couldn't yet comprehend. And as she followed Dr. Carter through the chaos, she knew that the choices she made in the coming moments would shape not only her future, but the future of everyone around her. The stakes had never been higher, and the twists were far from over. As Emily followed Dr. Evelyn Carter through the labyrinthine corridors of the warehouse, the chaos around them seemed to grow more intense with every step. The sound of gunfire and shouting echoed off the walls, and the flashing red lights cast long, ominous shadows that danced like specters in the dimly lit space. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, her mind racing with questions she couldn't yet voice. Who was Dr. Carter? Why was she helping her? And where was Daniel? The last image of him on the monitor, calmly speaking to one of the masked intruders, haunted her thoughts, but there was no time to dwell on it. Dr. Carter moved with purpose, her strides confident and unhurried, as if she had navigated this kind of danger countless times before. Emily clung to that confidence, using it as an anchor to steady her frayed nerves. They reached a hidden elevator at the far end of the warehouse, its doors sleek and unmarked. Dr. Carter quickly entered a code, and the doors slid open with a soft chime. "Get in!" she instructed, her tone leaving no room for hesitation. Emily obeyed, stepping into the elevator just as the sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the hallway. Dr. Carter followed, and the doors closed just as a group of masked figures rounded the corner. The elevator descended rapidly, the sudden drop making Emily's stomach lurch. She glanced at Dr. Carter, who stood with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "Where are we going?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Carter met her gaze, her green eyes sharp and calculating. "Somewhere safe," she replied. "And somewhere you'll finally get the answers you've been searching for." The elevator came to a smooth stop, and the doors opened to reveal a sprawling underground facility that took Emily's breath away. The space was vast, filled with advanced technology, bustling scientists, and screens displaying data streams that seemed to stretch endlessly. It was like something out of a sci-fi movie, but the tension in the air was all too real. Dr. Carter led Emily through the facility, her heels clicking against the polished floor. "This is the heart of the operation," she explained as they walked. "A place where we work to protect people like you, people with unique abilities that could change the world." Emily's eyes widened. "Abilities?" she repeated, her voice trembling. "What are you talking about? I don't have any abilities." Dr. Carter stopped and turned to face her, her expression softening. "You do, Emily. You just don't know it yet. And that's why Daniel brought you here." The mention of Daniel's name sent a jolt through Emily. "Where is he?" she demanded, her voice rising. "What's going on? Why was he talking to those people?" Dr. Carter sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly as if the weight of the truth was too heavy to bear. "Daniel is complicated," she said carefully. "He's one of us, but he's also been working undercover to infiltrate the group that attacked the warehouse. They're called the Shadow Syndicate, and they've been trying to exploit people like you for their own gain. Daniel's mission was to stop them, but things didn't go as planned." Emily's mind reeled. Daniel was a double agent? The man she had started to trust to feel something for had been lying to her all along. The betrayal cut deep, but before she could process it, Dr. Carter placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know this is a lot to take in," she said gently. "But right now, we need your help. The syndicate is closer than ever to achieving their goal, and if they succeed, it won't just be your life at risk, it will be the lives of countless others." Emily stared at her, her emotions a tangled mess of fear, anger, and confusion. "What can I do?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Dr. Carter's lips curved into a small, determined smile. "You can unlock your potential," she said. "And together, we can stop them." She led Emily to a room at the center of the facility, where a team of scientists was waiting. They explained that Emily's gift was a rare genetic anomaly that allowed her to manipulate energy, a power that, if harnessed, could neutralize the syndicate's plans. But unlocking it would require her to confront her deepest fears and embrace a part of herself she had never known existed. It was a daunting prospect. But as Emily looked around at the faces of the people who had risked everything to protect her, she knew she couldn't back down. The process was grueling, pushing Emily to her physical and emotional limits. But with each step, she felt herself growing stronger, more in tune with the energy that pulsed within her. It was as if a door had been opened, revealing a world of possibilities she had never imagined. And when the time came to face the syndicate, Emily was ready. The final confrontation was a blur of chaos and adrenaline, with Emily at the center of it all. She used her newfound abilities to turn the tide, her power surging like a storm as she fought to protect the people who had become her unlikely allies. In the end, the syndicate was defeated, their plans thwarted. But the victory came at a cost. As the dust settled, Emily found herself standing face to face with Daniel. He looked battered and bruised, his once charming demeanor replaced by a wariness that spoke of the weight he had carried. "I'm sorry,"